I never thought that Tuesday morning would change my life forever. What started as a routine patrol quickly turned into the most challenging mission of my career. Our squadron received intel about suspicious activity near the border, nothing we hadn't handled dozens of times before. I remember the briefing room, the casual way our commander pointed at the map, and how none of us suspected what was waiting up there. My call sign was Eagle 1, leading a formation of 4 F-16s, with Razor, Phantom, and Bolt watching my 6. The weather was perfect, too perfect, looking back. Clear skies, excellent visibility, the kind of day pilots dream about. But sometimes, perfect conditions are exactly what the enemy is waiting for. We took off at 0600, climbing through scattered clouds as the sun painted the horizon with streaks of orange and gold. Our mission parameters were straightforward. Patrol the designated zone, identify any unauthorized aircraft, but avoid engagement unless directly threatened. Standard procedure. The comms were filled with the usual chatter. Razor talking about his kid's baseball game, Phantom complaining about the new flight suits. Normal stuff that made the danger of what we do seem distant, manageable. I still hear those conversations in my dreams, sometimes ordinary moments that became precious simply because they were the last. Nobody suspected that our flight path had been compromised, that every mile was taking us closer to a carefully orchestrated trap. The first warning sign came about 40 minutes into the patrol. Our radar systems detected some unusual interference. Nothing alarming, just a slight anomaly that experienced pilots notice. I radioed back to base, but the response was delayed, broken by static. Again, nothing that would normally raise major concerns in that region. The mountains often cause communication issues, but something felt off. Call it instinct, call it a sixth sense that develops after thousands of hours in the cockpit. My grandfather, also a fighter pilot, used to say that planes talk to their pilots if you know how to listen. That morning, my F-16 was trying to tell me something, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up as we continued deeper into the patrol zone. The radar contact appeared suddenly. 6 bogies approaching from the north, flying low and fast. Too fast. By the time we registered what was happening, they had already achieved optimal attack positioning. Formation tight, weapons hot. I ordered, trying to keep my voice steady as adrenaline surged through my veins. But something was wrong with our targeting systems. The missile lock warnings came seconds later, followed by Phantom's voice, unusually tense. Eagle 1, I'm getting multiple locks. Systems compromised. In that moment, I realized we weren't just outnumbered, we were being actively jammed. Someone had studied our protocols, knew our weaknesses, and had set a perfect trap. As I banked hard right, ordering evasive maneuvers, I couldn't shake the terrible realization. This wasn't a chance encounter. We had been deliberately led here, and someone back home had to know about it. The missile alert klaxon screamed through my helmet, a sound every fighter pilot dreads, but trains for relentlessly. "Brake, brake, brake!" I shouted, pulling my stick hard while deploying countermeasures. The sky behind us erupted with flares and chaff as our formation split apart in 4 different directions. Training kicks in during moments like these. Your body moves faster than your mind can think. I rolled my F-16 into a tight barrel turn, pulling so many Gs that my vision started to narrow. Through the strain, I caught glimpses of contrails crisscrossing the blue expanse as the enemy missiles tracked our heat signatures. Phantom was the first to get hit. His right wing disintegrated in a flash of orange and black, sending his jet into an uncontrollable spin. I heard his last transmission, calm despite everything. Eagle 1, I'm hit. Systems failing. Tell Sarah I. Then nothing but static. The enemy fighters were unlike anything we'd encountered in training scenarios. Their maneuverability suggested 5th-generation aircraft with advanced thrust vectoring capabilities. They moved like predators, methodical and coordinated, separating us from one another with textbook precision. I managed to get behind one, achieving radar lock long enough to release an AIM-120, but my missile was immediately spoofed by sophisticated countermeasures. Whoever these pilots were, they had access to technology that matched or exceeded our own. Through my canopy, I caught a glimpse of Razor engaging two bogies simultaneously, his afterburners glowing bright as he executed a high-G climbing turn. For a moment, it looked like he might outmaneuver them. Then came the second missile impact of the day, and another fireball bloomed against the cloudless sky. "Bolt, form up on my wing," I called, trying to reestablish some tactical advantage as the remaining enemy fighters regrouped. No response. Through my left side window, I spotted Bolt's F-16 trailing smoke, limping away from the engagement zone, while two bogies pursued him relentlessly. "Bolt, status," I demanded, already knowing what was coming. His voice came through broken and strained. "Can't shake them, Eagle. Controls responding, but hydraulics failing. I'll try to draw them off you." Before I could protest, he banked away sharply, deliberately making himself the more tempting target. It worked. The pursuing fighters adjusted course, launching another volley of missiles that found their mark with devastating efficiency. Bolt's ejection seat fired seconds before impact, but the explosion was too close, too violent. The parachute caught fire as it deployed. Alone now, outnumbered 4-1, I faced a decision that no amount of training prepares you for. My fuel was running low after the intensive maneuvering. My weapon systems were compromised by whatever advanced jamming technology they were using, and base comms remained spotty at best. Standard protocol would call for immediate retreat, live to fight another day. But retreat would mean abandoning any chance of finding survivors, and something deeper, more primal, refused to accept that option. My squadron mates weren't just colleagues, they were brothers. Their families were waiting for them to come home. As I watched the enemy fighters circling like sharks, calculating their next approach, rage replaced fear. They thought they had me cornered, but they'd made one critical mistake. They'd left me with nothing to lose. I cut my engines, letting my jet appear to falter, and waited for them to take the bait. The silence that follows when you cut your engines at 30,000 feet is profound, almost peaceful if you weren't acutely aware of what it represents. My F-16 began its controlled descent as I played dead, watching through my canopy as two enemy fighters broke formation to investigate what they assumed was another disabled aircraft. Their overconfidence was my first real advantage. The other two bogies maintained distance, circling wider, experienced pilots keeping tactical oversight. I had maybe 15 seconds before they realized my shutdown was intentional. My hand hovered over the engine restart, timing crucial. Too early, and they'd scatter before I could engage. Too late, and I'd be a sitting duck. The approaching fighters grew larger in my view, slowing to visual confirmation speed. That's when I hit the ignition sequence and simultaneously rolled my aircraft inverted. The sudden restart and maneuver caught them completely off guard. As my engines roared back to life, I pulled through the inverted position into a steep dive, accelerating directly between the two investigating aircraft. They broke in opposite directions, exactly what I'd hoped for. In the split second of their confusion, I managed to get a clean lock on the nearest one and fire my remaining sidewinder without hesitation. The missile struck true, turning one of our attackers into a fireball. 3 left. I knew they'd adapt quickly, so I kept moving, pushing my aircraft through a series of unpredictable maneuvers I developed during training exercises, maneuvers my instructor had once called either brilliant or suicidal, depending on the day. The G-forces squeezed my chest as I pulled out of the dive, blood rushing from my head despite the compression suit fighting to keep me conscious. Their communication must have been excellent because they immediately shifted tactics, abandoning the pursuit formation for a more defensive triangle. They were protecting something or someone. The lead aircraft especially seemed to maintain a specific position relative to the others, never straying too far forward or exposing its flank. That's when it clicked. These weren't just regular interceptors. This was an escort formation. The lead aircraft likely carried someone important. My mind raced through possibilities as I dodged another missile lock, releasing my last chaff bundle. High-value target transport? Technology demonstration? Defection? Whatever the mission, it explained the intensity of their response to our patrol. They couldn't afford witnesses, which meant I couldn't afford to let them complete their objective. I needed to focus on that lead aircraft. Getting to the leader meant dealing with the two flanking fighters first. My ammunition was critically low, one AMRAAM and the guns. No room for missed shots. I climbed sharply, appearing to retreat, then executed a Colbert maneuver, an extreme nose-up aerobatic move that transitions into a dive from an almost stationary position at the top of the arc. It's not in any Western tactical manual and puts tremendous strain on both aircraft and pilot. As I completed the maneuver, I found myself behind and above the two escort fighters, who were still tracking my expected forward path. The element of surprise gave me just enough time to line up my guns on the nearest enemy. I squeezed the trigger, watching tracers connect with his fuselage. Black smoke erupted from his engine, just as the second escort realized what was happening. But before he could fully react, something unexpected occurred. An explosion from within the damaged aircraft, far larger than my gunfire should have caused. They were carrying something volatile, something that wasn't supposed to be there. With two enemy fighters down and the remaining two clearly protecting their lead, I knew I needed to force them into a mistake. My fuel warning light had been blinking for the last 3 minutes, a constant reminder that time wasn't on my side. The radio crackled suddenly, breaking the silence that had dominated the channel since losing my squadron. American pilot, a heavily accented voice announced, "Your position has been compromised by your own command. Disengage and you may live." The words hit harder than any missile. Was this psychological warfare or something more sinister? I'd heard rumors of corruption within certain command structures, whispers of intelligence leaks, but nothing concrete. I pushed the thought aside, survival first, conspiracy theories later. Still, the seed of doubt had been planted, explaining how they'd anticipated our patrol route so perfectly. I needed to create chaos in their formation, break their discipline, and force the leader to make a defensive move. Banking hard right, I accelerated toward them rather than away, an aggressive head-on approach that violated every engagement protocol. It was reckless, but recklessness was my only remaining card. The enemy pilots hesitated momentarily, clearly expecting evasion rather than confrontation. That split second of uncertainty was enough. I locked my last AMRAAM onto the right flanking fighter and fired, simultaneously dropping altitude to complicate their targeting solutions. The missile found its mark, not destroying the aircraft, but damaging it severely enough to force it out of formation. The leader was now protected by just one escort, and both were reacting to my unexpected aggression rather than maintaining their carefully coordinated defense. What happened next occurred so quickly that it still blurs together in my memory. The remaining escort pilot made a critical error, positioning himself directly between me and the leader, becoming a shield rather than maintaining tactical spacing. I seized the opportunity, opening fire with my cannon not at the escort, but through the space where he would be after his next predictable defensive move. Pilots under pressure revert to trained responses, and sure enough, he banked exactly as anticipated. My rounds continued past his new position and struck the leader's aircraft, causing visible damage to its right stabilizer. The escort realized his mistake too late, overcompensating with a hard turn that brought him directly into my line of fire. I didn't hesitate, emptying my remaining ammunition into his engine block. The aircraft shuddered, belched black smoke, and began losing altitude rapidly. The lead aircraft, now damaged and alone, did something I never expected. It accelerated directly toward me on what could only be described as a collision course. This wasn't standard military procedure. This was desperation. Through my windscreen, I could make out the pilot's helmet as the distance between us closed at frightening speed. My options exhausted, ammunition depleted, I held my course steady while preparing to execute a last-second roll that would either save or end my life. At under 1,000 feet separation, I committed to the maneuver, rolling my F-16 90 degrees and pulling hard on the stick. Our aircraft passed close enough that I felt the turbulence from his engines rock my plane violently. As I recovered from the maneuver, I glimpsed something falling from the damaged enemy fighter, a small cylindrical object trailing smoke. Not a weapon, but something had been jettisoned intentionally. Whatever secret mission they had been executing, the pilot had just ensured that the evidence wouldn't be recovered intact. As I regained control after our near collision, the enemy aircraft didn't circle back for another pass. Instead, it continued on a direct course away from the engagement zone, trailing smoke but still airborne. I was in no condition to pursue. My fuel reserves critical, weapons depleted, and my F-16 showing warning lights I'd never seen illuminated simultaneously before. The adrenaline that had carried me through the dogfight began to subside, replaced by the grim reality of what had just occurred. 3 of my squadron mates were gone, shot down in what was supposed to be a routine patrol. And according to that mysterious radio transmission, someone in our chain of command had deliberately placed us in harm's way. I needed to get back to base, but I also needed proof of what had happened. Banking toward where I'd seen the object jettisoned, I descended to a lower altitude, scanning the terrain below for any sign of impact. The mountainous landscape made visual identification difficult, but a thin column of smoke eventually caught my attention, rising from a small clearing about 2 miles east of my position. I noted the coordinates carefully, committing them to memory in case my systems failed completely. Whatever had been dropped was clearly important enough that the enemy pilot chose to destroy it rather than let it be captured intact. As I circled the area at a safe distance, the smoke suddenly intensified, followed by a secondary explosion that sent debris scattering across the clearing. Self-destruct mechanism. I realized standard procedure for sensitive technology or intelligence materials. But the fact that they'd gone to such lengths confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't just about shooting down a routine patrol. We had stumbled onto something much bigger. My fuel warning evolved from intermittent blinking to a continuous alarm, forcing me to abandon my reconnaissance and set course for the nearest friendly base. As I climbed to cruising altitude, I finally managed to establish clear radio contact with command. The response to my emergency call was immediate, but something felt off about it. Eagle 1, this is Control. We show 4 aircraft down in your sector. Confirm status and position. For aircraft? They were counting me among the losses. Before I could process the implications, another voice broke through, deeper, authoritative, identifying himself as General Hammond from Joint Special Operations Command. Eagle 1, this channel is now secure. Report directly to me. What exactly did you witness out there? The shift in command protocol was unprecedented, bypassing my direct superiors entirely. Someone high up already knew this wasn't a routine incident. I gave Hammond the condensed version. The ambush, the advanced enemy aircraft, the jettison object, and the radio message suggesting betrayal. His response was measured but revealing. Captain, when you land, you'll be met by my security team. Speak to no one else. Record nothing. What you encountered today has national security implications beyond your clearance level. As I acknowledged his orders, my thoughts turned to the families of my fallen squadron mates. What would they be told? That their loved ones died in a training accident? An equipment malfunction? The truth seemed increasingly unlikely. As the outline of the airbase appeared on the horizon, I made a decision that would alter the course of my career and possibly my life. I activated my personal recording device, against regulations but beyond caring at this point. Whatever conspiracy had cost the lives of 3 good pilots, I wasn't going to let it remain buried in classified reports and redacted documents. The landing gear deployed with a reassuring thud as I began my final approach, uncertain of what awaited me on the ground, but absolutely certain of one thing. This wasn't over. The moment my wheels touched down, I knew this wouldn't be a standard debriefing. The runway was eerily empty of the usual ground crew, replaced by a perimeter of military police and 2 black SUVs with tinted windows idling nearby. I taxied to the designated area and powered down my battered F-16, hands moving through the shutdown sequence automatically while my mind raced through possible scenarios. As I removed my helmet, I noticed the maintenance chief, a veteran with over 30 years of service, being physically prevented from approaching my aircraft. Our eyes met briefly. His expression conveyed concern mixed with something else. Warning? The canopy had barely opened when 4 men in unmarked tactical gear surrounded my jet, one extending a hand to assist me down. "Captain, we need you to come with us immediately," the leader stated. No introduction, no insignia. His tone made it clear this wasn't a request. I glanced toward the control tower, spotting the base commander watching from the window. He turned away when our eyes met. They escorted me not to the debriefing room, but to a secure facility on the far side of the base, a building I'd passed hundreds of times but never entered. Inside, the atmosphere was clinical, the walls bare except for surveillance cameras tracking our movement. I was led to an interrogation room, disguised as a conference space. One-way glass, recording equipment thinly concealed in light fixtures. "Wait here," my escort ordered before exiting, the electronic lock engaging with a definitive click. Alone for the first time since landing, the weight of everything crashed down. My hands began to shake, delayed shock, the flight surgeon would call it. I steadied myself against the table, breathing deeply, forcing my mind to remain clear. I needed to be precise about what I reported and, more importantly, what I held back. The recording device pressed against my chest beneath my flight suit, simultaneously a comfort and a liability. 3 hours passed before the door finally opened again. 3 individuals entered. 1 military, General Hammond from the radio, judging by his insignia. 1 clearly intelligence. The way he carried himself screamed CIA, and a woman in a conservative suit whose demeanor suggested Justice Department. None offer names. The general spoke first. "Captain, everything about today's incident is now classified level 5. This conversation never happened." The intelligence officer placed a folder on the table containing photos of the enemy aircraft I'd engaged, aircraft that officially didn't exist in any foreign military's arsenal. "These were prototypes," he explained, "American designs stolen and modified. You weren't supposed to encounter them today." The woman slid a document across the table, a non-disclosure agreement with severe penalties clearly outlined. "Your squadron was sacrificed because someone leaked your flight path," she stated matter-of-factly. "We believe it was to test these aircraft against our current models in actual combat conditions." I didn't immediately reach for the pen they offered. "My pilots deserve better than being written off as training casualties," I said, struggling to contain my anger. The general's expression softened slightly, the first genuine human reaction I'd seen since landing. "They'll receive full honors, Captain. Their families will be taken care of. But the official report can never mention what really happened today." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "This wasn't authorized at any level of legitimate command. We're dealing with a breach that extends into areas I'm not at liberty to discuss. Sign the documents. Accept the commendation you're about to receive for exceptional bravery during a training incident, and let those with proper authority handle the investigation." What choice did I really have? The coordinates of the crashed object were my only bargaining chip, and I wasn't ready to play that card yet. As I signed my name, accepting the official version of events, I made a silent promise to my fallen brothers. The truth would eventually surface, even if it took years. The real mission, my mission, was just beginning. Someone had set us up, sacrificed good men for an unauthorized weapons test, and they believed their secret died when our squadron went down. But they miscalculated. They left the witness. They left me. Warriors, what you've just heard isn't just another war story. It's a wake-up call about loyalty, courage, and the shadow world that exists behind the conflicts we think we understand. The conspiracy that claimed 3 brave pilots that day extends far beyond a single mission gone wrong. It raises uncomfortable questions about who really pulls the strings in modern warfare. Have you ever wondered how many other training accidents might actually be cover-ups for operations like the one I survived? The military-industrial complex has layers most civilians never glimpse, and sometimes even those wearing the uniform are kept in the dark. But knowledge is your greatest defense in this world of hidden agendas. What would you do if faced with the impossible choice I encountered that day? Would you sign the papers, accept the official story, and move on with your career? Or would you risk everything to expose a truth that powerful people want buried? The path I chose came at great personal cost. 4 months after the incident, I found myself under constant surveillance. My phone calls monitored, my movements tracked, Even my family subjected to routine security checks. The psychological warfare they waged was almost worse than the actual combat. They wanted to break me down, make me doubt my own memory of events, question whether what I'd witnessed was even real. But I had something they couldn't take away: the coordinates of that crashed object and the recordings I'd managed to secure before they confiscated my equipment. Finding allies within a system designed to isolate whistleblowers required patience and extreme caution. Not everyone wearing stars on their shoulders is corrupt, just as not everyone questioning authority is a patriot. The line between paranoia and prudence became razor thin. I learned to communicate through encrypted channels, document everything in multiple secure locations, and trust my instincts about who I could bring into my confidence. Some of the people who helped me risked their careers and possibly their lives. Others had lost loved ones in similar incidents and recognized patterns I was only beginning to uncover. Together, we built a network dedicated to exposing military operations conducted without proper oversight or accountability, operations like the one that claimed my squadron. The evidence we've gathered over these years points to something much larger than a rogue weapons test. What I witnessed that day was merely one small component of a program designed to field test advanced military technology against our own forces, creating controlled combat scenarios with real casualties to gather data that couldn't be collected in simulations. The revelation shook me to my core, but it also hardened my resolve. Those responsible still walk the corridors of power, making decisions that affect every man and woman in uniform. They believe their actions are justified by national security concerns that transcend individual lives. But I ask you this: what security are we preserving when we sacrifice our own people on the altar of technological advancement? What victory can we claim when our greatest enemy lurks within our own command structure? Today, I'm breaking my silence because you deserve to know. The families of Razor, Phantom, and Bolt deserve justice. The document I signed under duress has no moral authority, regardless of its legal implications. By sharing this story, I'm placing my faith in you, the viewers, the citizens, the people whose tax dollars fund these shadowy operations. Your awareness is the first step toward accountability. The coordinates, the recordings, the names of those involved, all will be released through proper channels in the coming weeks. Some will call me a traitor for this disclosure, but I believe the greater betrayal would be remaining silent while knowing other squadrons might suffer the same fate mine did. The oath I took was to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I never imagined the greatest threat would come from within. This isn't just my story. It's a call to action for everyone who believes in military honor and transparent governance. If this video resonates with you, share it. If you have information about similar incidents, reach out through secure channels. The more voices join this chorus for truth, the harder it becomes to silence us. Have you noticed how military whistleblowers are portrayed in mainstream media? How quickly their credibility is undermined by carefully crafted narratives about mental stability or personal grievances. That's no accident. It's part of a system designed to discredit anyone who challenges institutional secrecy. But together, we can change that narrative. We can create a platform where truth outweighs classification, where duty to humanity supersedes orders, where the sacrifices made by servicemen and women are honored with honesty rather than convenient cover stories. Don't leave this video without taking action. Subscribe to this channel for updates as this story develops and more evidence comes to light. Enable notifications to stay informed about new revelations that mainstream sources won't cover. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences. Your perspective might connect dots others have missed. Most importantly, remember the names of those who didn't return from that mission: Razor, Phantom, and Bolt. They weren't just call signs. They were fathers, sons, brothers, and friends. Their sacrifice deserves more than a redacted report and a flag-draped coffin. It deserves truth. And with your help, that's exactly what they'll receive. The ambush that took down 3 jets claimed more than aircraft. It claimed lives and trust. But one pilot survived to tell their story. That pilot is me. And I won't stop until justice is served.